So hi again, everyone. Hi again, everyone, in case that didn't come through. Um, it's been a hot minute since I've done a video on this channel. Um, but I figure I might as well do one right now. It was pouring out there. I did another video. I got 5 minutes in. Had to stop because it was raining so hard out there. It was coming through. And I'm sure you guys don't want to hear. You might fall asleep hearing the rain that was raining out there. That was falling out there, I should say. It's still raining. But then again, this area of the world, storms are this time of year very wild. Anyway, I'm back here with another video, and this video is coming about because of a few Facebook pages that I'm a part of, and it's a popular topic. I'm not saying it's popular with everyone, but it's a popular topic that I see all the time because of these two pages that I'm on, and I actually like the topic. And I like to discuss it, but I see where there is a need to kind of maybe present a video to cause people to stop and think a bit, maybe to slow their boats, so to speak, and not because I'm telling anyone what to do, but just probably putting some things out there for them to think about. The topic happens to surround there are two topics actually, but it surrounds Africa. One is this idea of Africa uniting, which some people really believe is going to be happening. It's really a reality that they think is going to come to pass. And the other thing about people leaving from the United States, or I shouldn't say the United States, but leaving from this side of the world. I should also include Europe, black people, people of African descent who are moving back to or moving to the African continent. So let's go with the first one. The first thing is one of the pages that I'm a part of. People are talking about moving back to Africa or moving to Africa. A lot of people excited, moving to Africa, moving to Africa, moving to Africa. That's it. And I commend people who feel that way. I would like to move to Africa myself. If I had the perfect opportunity presented to me, I would like to move there also. I am sick and tired of this country, the United States. It is a land where there's opportunities. I'm not going to deny that. But there's some other things that mean more to me than just that. Safety being one of them. And right now, with all these school shootings and mass shootings, every time you look around, somebody's getting shot, whatever. Here in South Florida where I live, you look at someone too hard, they want to shoot you. There's a lot of things going on the highways nowadays where it seems like there's just this new thing now where you get into an argument with someone at a mall, at a club or whatever, you follow the person on the highway, you open fire, you shoot people. And I have a young child I have to worry about, not to mention the fact that, my family, my wife, myself, and so forth. It's just too much going on. The political climate, oh my goodness, the last 4 years. I'm not talking about these years that are here, but I'm talking about the last guy who was in office. So for those of you who are his supporters, I'm sorry if you are upset by me saying that, but that just opened the cesspool of America. We always knew America had this little subculture down there with a bunch of crazies. Well, now those crazies have become legitimized. They're out in the open now with all of their nonsense. It's not hiding it anymore. They don't stay out of polite society anymore. It's like now it's just there. I don't want to deal with any of that. So I could understand a lot of black people simply saying, hey, I want to be out of here. And a great place for them to want to go to is back to Africa, or going to Africa, I should say. Not to mention the other Africans who are here, who are actually native Africans, who have done everything they wanted to do, or came over here and became disappointed, disillusioned, or came over here and picked up business ideas, education, and now they want to move back home to their home countries on the continent. Well, when I hear this, again, I commend people who want to do that. I think it's a great idea. Of course, there are things to consider. But during all of this, sometimes when I see this topic going on, one of the things that pop up, there are people who come in and say, Africans don't like us. Or you will hear, African Americans don't like Africans. Now, I lived in Harlem, and there was a peaceful coexistence there, but you would hear the mumblings. Oh, they don't like us, we don't like them. And then you have other groups, another group in between this group here that goes on, a subgroup that says, well, they sold us into slavery, so I don't like them for that reason. I have a pretty ignorant cousin myself who he's from the Caribbean, as I am, and he basically says the same thing. I don't like them because they sold us out. They don't like us, and I don't like them. That's what goes on with him. I wouldn't say this is the majority of African Americans in terms of how they look at Africans, and I wouldn't think the same thing as Africans looking at African Americans. Another thing with this crazy cousin of mine, because he's just whatever, but he says certain things, and another thing that he says, which you would hear from some people, oh, the Africans, they're this, they're that. Now, of course, when he says this, he only has one group of Africans in mind, and those are Nigerians. Which, of course, not all Nigerians are into cybercrime and all the different things that they have been accused of. We obviously know that. Nigeria is a place with 200 million people, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I have that right, but I know it's the most populous country in Africa. So sorry if I don't have my facts right at the moment, but it's the most populous country in Africa. And like one Nigerian pointed out, chances are you're going to run into a Nigerian before you run into someone from Botswana, before you run into someone from Tanzania, before you run into someone from Libya. You're going to most likely run into someone from Nigeria. And if you're going to look at a Nigerian or Nigerians as representative of the entire continent, you're going to have a big problem, and you're going to come away with a lot of misleading ideas. So just wanted to get that out of the way. But there are people who go ahead and they say something like that. To that I say, number one, you have to understand, I think where the problem comes up, whether people know this or not, I think a lot of people still subliminally or in their subconscious look at Africa as though it is a country. Africa is not a country. And I'm sure even if some people know better than that, they still kind of like look at it with this perception that Africans, meaning all Africans, act the same, think the same, that they're a monolithic group. Not realizing that Africa, number one, is not a country. And even if they know beyond that, and they know that it is a continent with different countries, I still think some people think that when they think Africans, like they're just a bunch of black people, and that's it. Not taking into consideration that there are different religions, different traditions, different ethnic groups, different regions, different colonial histories. All of those things play a role, and sometimes these differences are within the same country. Not to even mention two different countries. Nigeria being a perfect example. And so when you think of it like that, you start to realize that going to Africa does not mean that because I am a black person and I go over to Africa, that means everyone is going to be kumbaya and just basically be welcoming, or not look at me with some sort of suspicion, or not treat me in a kind of a way where they look at me coming from another part of the world. I may have the same skin color, but I'm like another tribe. I'm coming from outside. I'm coming into their place. And just because I may look like them or have the same skin color doesn't automatically grant me access and a smile. So some people struggle with this. It's like, oh, they don't like us, then they don't that, and they don't this. You have to understand, in Africa, some Africans don't like each other. And you have to understand that these countries, many of them, majority of them, were artificially created. Where hundreds of years ago, before colonization, there were individual tribes or ethnic groups living in different parts. They may have been neighbors separated by a river or a mountain range or something like that. But just because today you see them in the same country doesn't mean that they care for each other. Or they like each other. Or they want to be in each other's face. But what happened here now is that the Europeans came in, colonized, and took all these groups of people and put them together. And Nigeria is a perfect example. Nigeria, or Nigerian, sorry for sounding like I'm picking on you. I'm not really picking on you. Just using you for an example. Where the British came in and had a southern protectorate in what we call Nigeria today, and a northern protectorate in what we call Nigeria today. different ethnic groups, different groups of people, different histories, and just basically took all of them, mishmashed them together, and say, here's a country called Nigeria. Now y'all get along and be good boys and girls. So over in Africa, you do have tribal tensions. Okay? Now, when you're doing whatever is best for a tribe, that's great for the tribe. But when you have a country and you now try to tell every tribe, every group to say, hey, come and do what's best for the country, you may not always get everyone to come to the table and cooperate. Which leads to another thing that goes on over there. When these countries were created by the Europeans and they became countries, now they're nations. These places, as we know in Africa, resource rich. So if you go to a place like Nigeria, again, there we go with Nigeria again. But if you go to a place like Nigeria, you could have a part of Nigeria, let's just say southern Nigeria, where you have a lot of oil, right? Southern Nigeria. Now, before the Europeans came in, there are people living there. They're living on that land. So all of a sudden, a resource is discovered like oil or gold or silver or something else, or cobalt. Now, the government of these countries come down now and say, hey, you have oil. The people are saying, yeah, but it's on our land. It's in our tribal region. The government says, yeah, we know that. But for the better of the country, we need to exploit that. So government comes in, have the power. They're the central government. They come down there and they decide they're going to go ahead and start exploiting that area. Now you would figure the government will turn around now and say, okay, it's on those people's lands. But the government look at it like it's the country. It belongs to the entire country and it should benefit the entire country. The government goes down, starts exploiting, and the people who are living in that area are either displaced or contamination from whatever they're doing down there. The water's becoming polluted, land being taken away. And then on top of it, to add insult to injury, the people living there get no benefit from this. They don't see any of the money. They don't have better schools. They don't see their incomes rising or their standards of living getting any better. But they look up at the capital city and they notice that the president or prime minister, well, president I would say, and his buddies are living large, living wealthy by exploiting things in these people's regions, and they're not benefiting from any of this. Instead, they're getting hurt. Instead, they're seeing no change in anything on their level. But the president, who's not from this region, or is hundreds of miles away at the royal palace or whatever you want to call it, or the president's residence, he's over there living good. So what you have now, regional tensions. You find that in a place like the Congo, where in the eastern part, I think in Katanga province, over on the eastern side of the nation, where all these resources are, these people are over there. And they're looking at it like, okay, yeah, the Belgians may have created a country here. That's y'all business. This has always been our tribal land. This has always been our ancestral land. And we don't trust you people who are clear on the other side of the country because we have nothing in common with you. So why should you be coming over here and taking our resources? And then not only take the resources, sell it off, exploit the land, and we see nothing back from this. You're coming into our region, tearing up our ancestral land, taking out the resources, making money off of it, and we're not seeing any benefit from this. What do you expect is going to happen? So, for African Americans or Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean folks like myself, going to Africa, we have to understand that in Africa, there's still a lot of things that need to be ironed out. That amongst themselves, there's tension going on. There's still latent tensions. There's still things latent right there that could pop off into a civil war on any given day. So when we go over there, we can't look around and think like, roll out the red carpet for us. We are coming back home. Treat us right. Africans themselves over there dealing with their daily issues every day. Just because you're showing up doesn't mean it's going to be like automatic access and a smile. I'm not saying that that's how all Africans look at it, because there are some Africans who are very, the majority I will say, very welcoming, hospitable, willing to help. But you have to understand, you're still a stranger coming in. You may have the same skin color, but you might as well be another tribe from across the river that they may look with a certain amount of suspicion, or like, you know what, I don't know. And it also doesn't help sometimes the way that African Americans, unfortunately, in this country are portrayed. So you're going over there, and some people may not do their homework to understand the traditions, understand the customs. It's entirely, again, just because you have the same skin color doesn't mean that you're going to see things the same way, or you're going to come in understanding certain traditions and customs that you need to learn to feel so that you can be more accepted, so to speak. So that's one of the things that I think about. Now, the other thing is the whole thing about Africa uniting. I personally believe that's not going to ever happen. Now, you may have some regional cooperation where people within a particular region of the continent who may have a lot in common, you could see something happening there. Like you might say, well, the people in Eastern Africa in a particular area like Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, you might say, all right, I could see them, whatever. But those people over there may not have anything, do not have anything in common with the people in Libya and Algeria, or perhaps even the people down in South Africa. Different colonial histories, different regions, different religions, different beliefs. Then you have the other countries like Somalia, that's like a hellscape right now. Just anarchy. It's like behind God's back. Don't know what's going on over there with them. Then you have other countries like Ethiopia embroiled in a civil war. Then you have other countries in West Africa still doing the old school thing of coups. And then you still have, like in Equatorial Guinea, you still have some old dictators who are still there, in power, still getting rich, packing away billions, family living large, and the people are still living in poverty. So now, this idea of Africa uniting, just imagine trying to get 54 countries together, different ethnic groups, different languages, different beliefs, different things going on with them right now, and trying to say, hey, stop all of that, let's all unite and become one Africa. I don't think people think that through when they talk about Africa becoming united. I just cannot see that happening. There will have to be a dramatic change and transformation of so many different things for something like that to become possible. What do you think Morocco has in common with Botswana, other than the fact that they're in the same continent? What do you think Lesotho has in common with Somalia, other than being on the same continent? For many of us, and just to show you, for many of us, when we think about Africa and uniting and going back to Africa, how many African Americans or Afro-Caribbean people you know, or black people in South America, or black people in Central America, who will pack up and say, yeah, I think I want to move to Somalia. We're not thinking about over there. We're thinking about most likely West Africa, where many of us, our ancestors, came from. We're not thinking about going to Sudan to build up Sudan. We're not thinking about going to Chad. We're thinking Ghana, the Gambia, Nigeria, Senegal, maybe a trickling in Angola, maybe a few folks down in South Africa. We're not thinking about certain parts of Africa at all. And the reason why we're not thinking about that, because subconsciously we know that those places have nothing really in common with us. Our ancestors didn't come from Chad. I mean, of course, you could probably find a few scattered in between who migrated over thousands of years and ended up in Ghana or whatever, you know, or on the western coast of Africa. But for the most part, what does a person from Jamaica have in common with someone from Sudan? Other than, well, we have the same skin color. You think you're going to go to Sudan and find customs there that you could still find a thread of it or a resemblance of it in Antigua or in Guyana amongst black people or in Brazil? No. You think you're going to go to Libya? Beautiful rainbow out there. You think you're going to go to Libya and look around and say, wow, I could see a lot of resemblance here to where I come from? No. But yet, you can go to Ghana, you can go to Nigeria, you can go to Senegal, and I could hold up a picture of their cities and hold it up next to Mandeville, Jamaica, or Georgetown, Guyana, or St. Kitts, and hold up a picture and you will see a lot of resemblances. You know, you will see things like maybe some breadfruit trees, you'll see some coconut trees, you'll see beaches, you'll see mango trees. But am I going to go to Egypt and see that? No. Am I going to go to Djibouti and see that? No. Now, there are people from the Caribbean and from this side of the world who will show an affinity to a place like Ethiopia in northeastern Africa. And that goes a little bit deeper because Ethiopia has always been looked at as kind of like, how should I put it? Like the well, for some people it's like Ethiopia because of their resistance to the occupation and colonization of Europeans, have always been looked up as like the epitome of African independence and rebellion against colonization. But outside of that, what do we have in common with Ethiopia? Nothing. Nothing. Now, some people make it relevant for religious reasons, but how many people came over on those slave ships came from Ethiopia? The country itself, with the current country that we know as Ethiopia, that region of the world, how many? Unless an Ethiopian happened to be in the west coast of Africa when a slave ship pulled up, chances are nothing like that ever happened. So when they're talking about uniting Africa, I just cannot see anything like that happening. Then there's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Speaking of that and springboarding off of that, you have people think about it this way, look at it this way. While we from this side of the world are clamoring to move to places like Africa, places in Africa, what do we see on the other end? Lots of Africans trying to leave the continent, especially sub-Saharan Africans. So we're trying to go in, they're trying to leave. There's something there going on. We're seeing opportunity in going to where they're leaving from, and they're seeing opportunity to where we're trying to leave from. As a matter of fact, the other day, story out of the country of Antigua that started a chartering flight between Nigeria and Antigua. Because in neighboring Cameroon, there have been ethnic tensions for quite some time, because you have Cameroonians who are influenced by the Anglos or the British, and then I think you have the other part by the French. And I think the French portion of Cameroon, they're the dominant group, so to speak, and they're trying to enforce or impress the French Cameroonian culture, if you want to call it that, over on the British side. So you do have some tension going on there, like somewhat like a civil war that no one is really talking about. So a lot of these Cameroonians, when they heard about this route from Nigeria over to Antigua, they started spending money to get on that flight to come over to Antigua, because they figure if they can get to Antigua in the Caribbean, then they can leave from there and now they're closer to the United States. Now they can fly to South America and then take a trek across Central America and try to seek asylum in the United States at the US-Mexico border. They're trying to leave. We're trying to go in. That's one route. A more common route is for people from sub-Saharan Africa to end up crossing the Sahara or sailing up the coast and getting to places, the western coast of Africa, and getting to places like Morocco, Tunisia. And those countries, they don't want to see these people from sub-Sahara coming in. Now, it's very easy for us to stand here and say, oh, well, those people in North Africa, they're racists. Because those places up there, a lot of people are from a different religion. They have more in common with people on the other side of the Mediterranean Sea and the Middle East than they do with sub-Saharan Africa, other than the fact that their countries are on the same continent. And when they get there, sub-Saharan Africans are treated like trash, treated like animals. There's still slavery going on. And they have to come up with money, or they run out of money and they end up just there. And it's just, no one can account for them because they're sneaking into these countries. And no one can account for them. So they may end up dead in a desert somewhere. And no one knows anything about them. That's it. That's the end of them. No one knows where they are. But sometimes we look around and we hear people saying, those people up there in North Africa are racist towards people in sub-Saharan Africa. Again, I don't know if people are listening. You're talking about one African country that you're saying is racist against another African, or the people of another African country. Which tells you right in your mind, you're already noticing that there are differences between these two regions. But yet, that's the Africa that some people think is going to become united one day. So with that in mind, when people talk about these type of things, you have to understand that when it comes to illegal immigration, as some of these countries decry, illegal immigration is something that a lot of people are not going to feel very comfortable with. Now, does it mean that they're not racist people in Tunisia, in Algeria, in Libya, racist towards people from sub-Saharan Africa? Of course they are. But you also have to understand that when it comes to these countries, they have to look out what's best for their people. And some of these countries are struggling themselves. And now you have illegal immigrants or an influx of people coming into their country seeking a better life, or trying to use their country as a springboard to get over into Europe so they can get a better life. We forget the fact that in West Africa, West African countries themselves have expelled people from neighboring countries out of their country. Ghana did it. Togo did it. Nigeria did it. And these are people who look just like them from neighboring countries. Next door. It's like, hey, there are too many of you here. Get out of our country. We're going to put you out of our country. Do we call that racist? So sometimes I don't think we think through some of these things sometimes. So to top this thing off, it's almost been a half an hour. The whole idea of people from this side of the world, black people from this side of the world, wanting to go over there to Africa, to the continent. Wonderful thing. If it's something you can pull off, if it's something that you can see your way through, that's a wonderful thing to do. Not discouraging, not knocking on anyone for doing that. But you just have to consider certain things. And when you go there, you may encounter certain struggles, because remember, Africa is not too far removed from colonization. And they're still trying to get their act together in so many different ways. The place was completely underdeveloped by the Europeans. Left so many places high and dry. And they're still trying to find their way. And there's some positive things that are coming through in Africa, yes. But don't expect to go over there and have a red carpet rolled out and then wonder, how come they don't like me? What's their problem? You might have to learn some hard knocks over there. You go over there and realize it's not going to be a bed of roses in some places. Okay? So these are things that have to be considered, things to look into. And then for the folks that, because I have a cousin of mine that send me a bunch of stuff about Africa every day. A lot of the things are positive. I personally think that it's a pipe dream in certain ways, because you have to think about the fact that there's still a lot of corruption, rampant corruption running around. Because there's still that whole idea of private companies or countries or whatever coming down there and dropping bags of money onto the tables of leaders of these countries and saying, give us access to your resources. And when these things happen, these are contracts, these are backdoor meetings that the local people don't know anything about. So when money is exchanged, there's no transparency. So someone living way out in a rural area doesn't know that the leader just made a deal with some foreign company to go and exploit his land where he's living. So when money is exchanged, they don't see anything. They don't know what's going on. All they know is that they look around and see their president driving the best vehicle, that he has mansions in different places in the world. That's all they see. That's all they know. And they know something is amiss. They know something is wrong. So many things are going on there that you're going to have to probably fight through, understand, deal with, because again, Africans are dealing with whatever is going on. And I forgot to mention something else. I am from the United States Virgin Islands. And just to show you what I mean when we talk about skin color, here's the interesting thing. There are people on my Facebook page who are from the Virgin Islands. If they see something going on like in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, they will jump up. Oh, look what's going on. Those Dominicans, oh, they don't like the Haitians and this. And they're just like social warriors. Or they will look over in a place like Africa and say, look at how those Arabs, those Muslims are treating the black people who are coming from sub-Saharan Africa. Bunch of racists. Oh, look what they're doing. They're still enslaving those people over there. Oh my goodness. Oh, whatever. Look at what they're doing. Those are the same people who, Haitians coming to the Virgin Islands, or black Dominicans coming to the Virgin Islands. They're the same people running around the place. Oh, these Haitians coming over here and doing this. Oh, these Haitians and these Dominicans, and they're complaining about the Haitians and Dominicans right there. Now, they will complain, they will criticize what other countries are doing to black people. But when there are black people who come into their country or our islands, illegally or legal, and they're doing certain things, they lose their minds. So, what is happening in your backyard is a problem. But you're very easy to criticize other people that's doing the very same thing where they're making the same complaints. Now, granted, I am a child of immigrants. I have a soft spot for immigrants. Understand that. You know, so when I hear in this country, and I hear people like this last clown who was in office throwing out dog whistles, or people in his party throwing out dog whistles about people coming across the border and whatever, I don't like to hear that stuff. I don't participate in that type of stuff. But to the same extent, I do understand to some degree how people in a particular place can say, hey, I don't have this, I don't have that, but an immigrant is coming in, or an illegal immigrant or whatever, and they're getting this and they're getting that, and people can make those kind of arguments. So I do understand what goes on there. My thing is, I don't like the way when it's put over in the form of hate. I can understand a healthy criticism of something like that. But when it's like, I don't like those people at all, just because they're not like us, I'm not into that kind of stuff. I have a problem with that. Just hating people because they're not from my tribe. So, those are the type of things that I just had in mind. Now I'm just here just talking off the cuff. Didn't put anything in front of me to read through a script or anything like that. I'm sure there's some things that I've probably forgotten. But I'm hoping that this can be a video that can generate some conversation. Now, granted, I know some people are probably going to come in. I'm not saying everyone needs to come in and say, you're right, hey, you're right what you're saying. But I hope I made some kind of sense. And I hope I gave some things for people to talk about. And there's one other thing that I wanted to point out, which I've mentioned in one of my earlier videos, and I know I'm almost done here, but you could just see how certain things are played out. in certain ways and in subtle ways. I don't know how I know many people probably watching me right now when I watch the Black Panther movie, the very first one. In that movie, notice something very carefully that you may have not have paid attention to or may not have noticed, and maybe you have. In the video, T'Challa, the Black Panther, he was presented as regal, soft-spoken, wise, powerful, rich, and all that good stuff, right? His rival, Killmonger, represented the African Americans. Loud, rambunctious, aggressive, violent. So even in that movie, stereotypes were kind of played out there. Now, I don't know if that was deliberate. I don't know if it was subconscious that they weren't aware of that, but that's basically how it was presented. Just keep that in mind. Okay? Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'm sure I have some other things to talk about. I'm going to think about some other things I forgot to say, but I just want to go ahead and put that video out here for now. You guys have it in the comment section. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say, okay? Now, I haven't done a video in quite some time, but I'll go through a spiel. Please click and subscribe. You can share this video if you would like to. I would love to hear your feedback. It would be great. You guys take care. Until the next video.